So we're here in Centralia, Pennsylvania, a town that was destroyed when the coal mines caved in and caught on fire. There's a lot more to the story that Linda's going to share with you in a little bit. But right now we're just kind of driving around, scoping out the town, looking at the roads that have been reclaimed by nature to an extent. And there's not a lot here at first glance.
There's not.
But let's take a look around and see what this place looks like.
I think that video that your dad showed us, I think this was one of the houses that were highlighted on the video. And what the case was that there's a couple of residents who are still living here who are kind of holdouts. A lot of their homes have been purchased by the state or by the county. They're trying to reclaim all of the land here, so just to ensure that there's no development of any kind that occurs. But there's a couple of older residents, as I said, that are still sort of hanging out here and don't really want to leave, despite the fact that they've, expressed concerns to the residents about the toxic gases and stuff that are still kind of coming up out of the ground and floating through the town. But people don't seem to care. And certainly these people, if it's been their home all of their lives, I mean, it's kind of understandable because right here, I mean, I don't see any toxic fumes or anything like, you don't know.
I'd live here.
Yeah, I think I'd live here too. But it's really strange because, like I said, there's really nothing here.
Right. We got to try to find the heart of the town, like the downtown area, I think.
We are in the heart of the town.
I don't know. There's a little road up here we could go and explore. And I see an old structure right here on the corner. Right? Looks like an old house used to stand there, perhaps.
Yeah. Everything's just been so reclaimed by nature already. There's really nothing left but just this grid of broken up roads.
Yeah.
Forming what would have been the town blocks.
Yeah, we can stop here and get out and look around.
Yeah. I do see some people walking down. Let's just park the truck a little further up where we're out of the way of this graffiti.
So I'm not sure what area of town we're in now. We just passed a gentleman who was looking for the graffiti highway, which unfortunately was covered over with dirt during the pandemic. But nonetheless, there's quite a bit of graffiti along this road here. And there's a little road going that way that we're definitely going to have to explore. Got a chalk outline. And we'll see if we can get a little view from the top of this road here. This is the one we came up where there's still some residents down there. Still some people living. But I can see from here, it looks like that road across the street goes up pretty high. And I do see a church up there. I'm not sure that's the Centralia church.
There's a Peter and Paul Cemetery. I can see enough of an overview of the town on the map, even though I'm not getting very good reception. I can see that not far from here there is a cemetery. They said that you could look for the cemetery. And it's actually just south of us, according to what I'm seeing here. And of course we can't really tell where the sun is and tell what direction we're looking. I'm guessing the sun's right up here.
Could definitely use the compass on the phone, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't think I have a compass on my phone, but
Now there is a church across the way here.
being that it rises in the east, sets in the west, we're afternoon. So I'm guessing that this would be north and that would be south back this way.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing the cemetery is probably over here. And that may be where the church lies. They said, look for the cemetery. That's where the church is. So
Oh, okay. So that one across on the hill would be too far.
I don't know. Depending on how far it is, it might be. It's hard to tell distance, like I said, because I'm not sure I'm getting a very accurate reading. I don't have cell service right now. But it'd be worth traveling over there and taking a look.
Absolutely. Yeah, I noticed this looks like it was paved at one point. Going up. I'm not sure. Go up a little ways and see what we have. And this road winds up here quite a ways. I'm just hoping to get a view at the top of it here at some point. But it looks like it keeps going. No, I see some graffiti on a rock up here. I don't see any remnants of a house or anything. I do see a few possible vantage points. Let me see what's up here over this hill. All right. Now just some dirt roads up here. Got some concrete over here, looks like. There's a structure in the distance. It comes out to another road. That one goes back to a gate. I think we may be able to drive up here and check this out. Another what looks like a driveway going up here. I can see the remnants of the curb down there. Some more graffiti. This was probably just like a little alley, maybe. It's old carpet. Looks like we could potentially drive up here too. That's the road we just came down. And it kind of intersected with this road. So I'm thinking this was kind of like an alleyway. And then down here you can see the old sidewalk going alongside of the road here. All overgrown, the weeds coming up between it, wildflowers. Over here we got more of the broken up old sidewalk. Can barely even tell there was a sidewalk there at this point.
So from what I can see on the map, it looks like that this was a normal city street at one time. And all of this was laid out in a grid, basically blocks in a city. This one that goes up here would connect to another one that ran parallel to the road that we're on right now.
And that's the one I just walked down. I walked up that one and then down.
And what we're on right now was considered Park Street. And yeah, you had just walked up and you'd walked around and you came down what's considered Stripe Street. Now, if you actually go a little bit further down this road, you can connect with another parallel road that's called, I think, Smith Street, further up. And if we can get on Smith Street and double back this way and come back, there should be a cemetery over there as well. And it looks like there's a structure near there that resembles a church.
There is. When I got up to the top of the hill, I saw something with a gate on the front of it.
Yeah.
Thought it was like a rich house,
I
but
think
I don't
that
know.
very well, I don't know. It looks from the top of it, it looks like it would be just a normal little small town church. But there is a cemetery over there, the Peter and Paul Cemetery.
Now, what about this little road down the end here?
This little road, again, was just another little road that it led off. I mean, it continued around. This one connected to another little street back in there, and it's just kind of this winding section of roads back in here. We can go down this street. I'm not sure if it's passable by vehicle, but you can supposedly go down this street. It might be a little bit further to go all the way around and hit that church from the backside. So I'm thinking the best way might be for us to go down and try to cut over to Smith Street, like I said, that runs parallel to this.
All right, let's check it out. So we ran into a gentleman at the top of the hill here, and he told us that that church across the way that we see, a white church, big one, is indeed the one from Centralia.
I don't think it is.
You don't think it is?
No, because we saw pictures at the Anthracite Museum of that church. And the church that it showed pictures of was more of a small town church where you'd have that squared off kind of bell tower at the very front center of the church.
They may have had more than one church, though.
It was not a fancy church like this one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it'd still be worth going and checking, because like I said, they may have had more than one church.
It could be.
That may have just been the church from the preacher that put the curse on the town.
I think that's what it was. But
reveal that article
that's
later
the
on.
one that they said was still standing. The other one that's farther over there, I don't even think is considered part of Centralia anymore because it's so far away on the other side of the slope of the mountains over there.
I guess it depends on how big the town was.
This rock wall.
But here is part of the graveyard, or one of the graveyards that was here in Centralia. The St. Peter
and Paul Cemetery.
Peter and Paul. You can see the gate right here. And then just across from the Peter and Paul Cemetery, there's what Linda said was the St. Ignatius Cemetery. So perhaps this was still here this was from the town. Had to be.
Yep. Yeah, when you look at it, there's really not a whole lot left as far as structures. This is one of the few structures that I saw on the map, and that's what I wanted to come over and look at because it looked like it was a small building, possibly a church when you see it sitting in proximity to the graveyards. But obviously it's just kind of a large storage shed or some sort of garage. But I think it's worth, exploring a little bit more and seeing whatever other structures we can find.
So way across the valley here, that little white church, that is indeed the church from the town. And we're gonna have to find our way over there to get a better look at it. So before we head over to the church, we're going up this bumpy road that leads to the cemetery. And this is the cemetery that was in the foreground. I'm not sure how far up this road we can get. But here it is. Gates unlocked. So across the street from that cemetery, we're just taking this little road, and there's another cemetery. So I figured we'd come over here and take a look at this one too.
Because this is the St. Ignatius Cemetery that we were looking at across the road here.
Right.
So the St. Ignatius Church would have been right next to it. Would have been up against it.
Yeah, we'd have to look at what that church is on the ledge.
Yes.
But first we'll go ahead and take a look at this. Can't even see the sign. It says
Donations may be sent to da-da-da-da-da.
Isn't this amazing? A cemetery from a town that no longer stands. Civil War veterans. And it really is a scenic little cemetery. In the history that's up here, here's somebody that fought for the Pennsylvania Volunteer Infantry during the Civil War and survived for many years afterwards. World War veterans. Spanish-American War. And a really old headstone over here that you can no longer even make out the date. And out here you can see an old little road that used to come to the back gate of the cemetery here, which is now all rusted and overgrown. So walking up behind the cemetery here, ran into a gentleman who said he found out that the burn site was believed to be around this area. The burn site where I believe the fire department was preparing for a Memorial Day parade or celebration in the town. They were burning some trash, and it went through to the mines and caught the vein on fire. Once again, we'll get some further information on that though. More remnants of a structure.
So, this is something you don't see every day. Look at this pile. We just made a big circle. Came back around. This has some of the biggest chunks of anthracite I've seen. And it's actually pretty cool to see something like this.
Yeah, look at that, huh?
Yeah, I'm very tempted to take one so that I can try carving it like that guy that we saw in the museum.
Yeah, I'm thinking
know?
this one right up here would be a good one.
I was thinking maybe one a little bit smaller. Start off with something small. So sitting right up against the St. Ignatius Cemetery that we visited was the St. Ignatius Church. This is one that was incorporated, or was built only 3 years after the town was incorporated. And within a few years, this was a very rapidly growing congregation of people. Now, it remains standing here up through 1962 when the fire had broken out in the mines underneath, and it actually remained standing for a long time after that. But they had built the cemetery next to it. They had a school here. By the 1980s, the parents of the children who attended the school here were very concerned for the safety of the kids because it did sit within the burn zone. And they decided to close up the church and close up the school. The church actually kept going up through the 1990s. And in the 1990s, they held their last service, and because they had too few parishioners to be able to sustain the church. And in 1997, in November specifically, they came in and actually burned the church to the ground. Now, this is the church that was centered around the legend. The Molly Maguires were very active. This was a hotbed of activity, Centralia was. And the Molly Maguires were active during the 1860s. The man who actually founded the town of Centralia was murdered in his buggy between here and a nearby town called Mount Carmel back in the 1860s. And they actually murdered and wreaked havoc on quite a few other people that were associated with the coal mining industry in the area. But it was one of the first Roman Catholic parishioners here in the town of Centralia that was actually assaulted by the Molly Maguires. And he's the one who actually put the curse on the town and said that before too long, that church would be the only thing that was remaining standing. Now, it's kind of funny because it did actually remain standing up through the 1990s after it was, despite being in the center of the burn zone, that it's actually remained standing and continued to have a congregation in it. But unfortunately, it just couldn't be sustained. It was burned down, and now the only remaining one is the one that's across the valley a little bit that we're going to go to next. You want to take a right here. This was Paxton Street. And Paxton Street should go up and it should curve around a little bit, become Center Street. And as we get up there, the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary Church should be up there on our left.
So here's the church, still standing. And unfortunately, there's no trespassing signs all around the property, so we can't actually go up to the church. Can't actually go up to the graveyard, but we can get a good look at it from the outside here, as it is quite an amazing structure.
So the church in front of us here is the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary Church. And it's one of the only remaining structures in the town of Centralia. The reason being because when they did studies, they found that this church actually sits on a solid bed of rock. There's nothing else below it except for the rock, and the coal is not able to burn, of course, through the rock. It's become sort of an unofficial pilgrimage for the Roman Catholics. They consider it sort of a shrine because it's the only remaining church or the only remaining building here in Centralia, a town that's been decimated by this fire. And here you have this beautiful, pristine white church sitting up on the hill. So they consider it kind of a holy landmark of sorts, which is perfectly understandable. Now, we can't really get out and go up and walk around on the grounds too much. They do have large signs sitting out at the entrances that say private property. If you're not a parishioner or if your family members are not interred here, then you need to leave. It's understandable because there's been a lot of vandalism here in the town of Centralia recently, and they probably don't want this beautiful landmark to be vandalized. Was that steps back there?
Could you see steps back there?
I think so. Can you back up a little?
Pull over and hop out and take a look. We do have remnants of an old sidewalk here. And yeah, sure enough, there's some old steps going up. Steps just kind of lead to nowhere. And the wall continues. A lot of vegetation up there.
Quite a lot.
I don't see any structures still standing. I imagine there's probably a foundation or something.
Probably, but yeah, most of this debris was even hauled away.
Walk up these steps just for nostalgia, I guess.
Yeah, just to say you did.
Yeah, this place was probably lined with houses.
It probably was, and now there's just nothing left. It's so overgrown that you can't even see the structures that may remain, which would be probably debris or the remains of foundations. But you know, everything's so overgrown you can't see anything from the street.
Yeah, and here we have the old sidewalk going along.
So what I found here was a strange little spot that was kind of a break in the sidewalk that continues on either side. And it's this little tar spot that you can see, pavement down below me. But when you look for places like this, one of the best things to do is look at the lay of the land. And if you notice that if this was a driveway and it continued down here, this driveway would have been lined by these very large trees that you see over on the left-hand side. So I'm guessing that this driveway went back and sort of curved around just a little bit with these large trees overshadowing it on the left, and probably went back to a house that sat right here on this corner, just a little ways back. But right now, of course, you look back there and you don't see anything.
It's crazy how these sidewalks are all overgrown.
Yeah.
And you can almost picture all the houses that were around here in Centralia.
Yes.
Kids walking around on Halloween, trick-or-treating, door to door.
Right.
The sounds of the scary music and all that stuff.
Yeah, even people walking up to that church.
Walking up the church. Yeah. Quite a place.
Yes. It's hard to believe that just one simple disaster can entirely wipe off the face of the earth an entire town like this. I mean, they had they had so many thousands of people that were residents here, and it's just really kind of surprising because it makes you think of how unpredictable life can be and how unpredictable, you know, the area that you live in can be, you know, that it can come up and swallow the town basically,
Right.
and everything you know is lost.
Christmas was celebrated here, and
Yeah.
the main street was probably all decorated, nice. And well, let's
Yeah.
go a little further down here and see where
See
this
what else
road
we can
leads.
find. What's that straight ahead? Is that a fence?
It looks like a fence or a guardrail. I wonder if we should go up this street to the right here first.
Yeah, this looks like a cool street.
See where this goes. Oh, this street's almost completely consumed by the trees. You have the vegetation growing out on the road. Keeping an eye out for structures along the way.
Yeah, I did see another driveway that went back in there. A lot of those, and it seems to be the only thing remaining. Graffiti guardrail. No, look at those trees. That was obviously a piece of someone's property back there.
Any remnants?
Those are beautiful trees. Not that I could see. The remnants are the trees.
I think perhaps we should get out here and explore just a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. Cause
Looks
this
like a good photo op.
So being that we're always traveling around different places, we always kind of want to have a snack in the car with us. And I wanted to feature these because these are my new absolute favorite snack. Dot's Homestyle Pretzels. These are not just any pretzels. Don't get me wrong. Pretzels are boring. They have tons of salt on the outside of them, and that's it. You just eat them and, you know, crunch on them, and some of them are rather hard, and, you know, I just don't like them. Dots has seasoning on them, and it's somewhat reminiscent of like the original Chex Mix, you know, that you would make at home, and you would, you know, have it like all kinds of butter and everything all over it. That's kind of how these are, but you need to pick these up. They're from, I believe, North Dakota. There's a picture of Dot herself, so it kind of makes it look like a homemade sort of thing, which it certainly is. It was an old family recipe of hers. You need to pick some of these up. These are the best things I've ever had in my life, and try some. Support Dot, because she looks like a real nice lady.
Yeah, we're not endorsed or sponsored by
Dot, but we want to kind of encourage her business.
some remnants in here. Brick wall. Perhaps the foundation
Yep.
goes back a little bit.
And that brick wall seems to continue on down here. See a little bit of it right here. And then it just keeps going. I mean, this obviously formed the front of a street, a line of.
Yeah, I see a little break in it here where there might have been some stairs that went up.
Yep, I'm guessing that's probably steps that went up there. And this tree here is one that you would typically see growing at the very front of a piece of property up against a street.
Right.
So no doubt, from judging from the size of this thing, that this was definitely here back in the 60s when the disaster took place. If it'll ever burn itself out.
Walking back up to the top of the street here, we get quite a view across the valley. across the town. There's a storm drain and remnants of a sidewalk on the corner. You can see it going back behind these leaves here, as that sidewalk is completely reclaimed.
That if I could build a house in this area in Centralia, this would be the little corner that I would want it on. But that was before I came down and came around the corner and realized that people had actually been hanging out here. Looks like it's a perfect hangout spot for teenagers. They've hung scarecrows. They've got a grill right here. They've got trash cans. They've got a burn pile. So it's obvious that some of the nearby teenage kids have been hanging out here and hanging pretty hard. It's actually a pretty cool spot.
Nice hangout. Now I'm wondering if back in the day, this would have been a parking area where people could come down here and park and look out over the mountainside here, over the town.
It very well could have been. Or it could have just been a cul-de-sac at the end of a normal residential street. If you notice again, we have a couple of these, see these trees? These larger trees that are here were definitely there back in the day, but all of this underbrush would have been gone. There would have been nothing here. So it's very likely that there could have been houses, maybe one sitting right here up near these trees. You never know. Definitely a beautiful little cul-de-sac.
Another road that goes up here.
Yep, and again, sidewalks kind of on either side.
Somewhat of a steep road. Looks like it curves around. Is this the road we were on earlier?
I don't think so, but I think we were on that road up there earlier. So you might want to turn off to the right.
Okay.
So this would have been Railroad Avenue, and it does split. There's a median down the center of it. No doubt this was a very nice neighborhood at one time.
I see some little roads going off to the side there.
There are, and some of these could have just been driveways, paved driveways, because they don't look very wide. They don't look certainly wide enough for two cars to go down.
Or one-way alleyways, you know. They have a lot of them up around here.
Yep, and there is sidewalks all the way down here. One thing that would be cool is to do sort of a before and after picture book, basically, of Centralia. If you were able to find some very old pictures of the town and the local area, and then take photographs of that exact spot from the same perspective that the old photographs were taken.
That would be neat.
That way you can see the growth and see the change over time.
So we came across the old intersection, and for nostalgia's sake, walking up the old sidewalk here, and there looks to be a staircase across the street. Quite a significant rock wall here.
It is, lining the front of some property. I'll tell them what was actually here at one time. This is a large, well-built rock wall.
And now at the top, it's just field.
Funny.
Good venture to see what's around the bend here a little bit. Nothing.
Still nothing but field, huh?
Just field. I wonder if this was maybe a park.
I don't know. Looking at the front steps, it had to be somewhere significant. This probably would not have been just a normal, everyday residence front steps. It looks like it could have led up to a bank, being that we're in kind of the heart of the town, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
These could have been steps up to a bank. It could have been, some sort of other municipal building or something kind of significant to the town. Although it very well could have been a wealthy or an affluent residence here.
I suppose so. It is a significant staircase, though, that's for sure.
So we're standing along Route 61, and this is actually the beginning of where the old section of road would have been. They had this section of road closed down now. You can't go through it at all. It's used to be the graffiti road that was very famous, an iconic image of the town of Centralia. But because of COVID, I'm not exactly sure why this is, but because of COVID, they decided to come and plow it over. They just kind of brought in a bunch of dirt and covered it over, and now it's just this dirt pile, this huge section of dirt that just kind of leads off. And I'm not sure why they thought that COVID was a good motivational factor for covering up this roadway. Maybe they thought that the teenagers were coming and hanging out here and spreading COVID around. I don't know. It doesn't seem to make much sense to me, but nonetheless, we're going to go off into the woods here and see what we can see of it. Highway would have continued from here. It would have come through what is now this
Oh, that's it over there.
bit of mud. Yeah, and you can see they've dumped all of these big piles of dirt over here just to sort of prevent people from driving through, being able to access it.
Wow.
Yep.
So this was it. This was the graffiti highway.
Yep.
But then, COVID. That's a lot of dirt.
It is a lot of dirt. And this just continues like this.
For as far as you can see.
Now, another thing that doesn't make sense to me, as well as the COVID, is that parts of this roadway were all broken up, and there was actually steam rising up out of the cracks in the ground and the cracks in the pavement. That's why they originally shut this down. So now they've come and they've put dirt over top of the cracks. So now you can't see the cracks to avoid where you might actually fall down into the burning mines below.
That's true.
So how does that work? Because you can't tell me that a pile of dirt is going to prevent the earth from finally giving out at some point and collapsing into a giant sinkhole. I don't know.
Here's what can be seen of some of the pavement. You can still see some of the edges showing through here.
Yep. That appears to be about it. It's just a couple of edges remaining, still graffiti. What they should have done is they should have gated this whole entire section of roadway off. And they should have actually had people to run tours down it. So they could charge admission for entrance into this section of the roadway, right? And then they could monitor people so that anybody that came through here, you can make sure that they were not doing anything that was going to be dangerous to their lives or anybody else's. And then problem solved. You have all of a sudden this landmark where you can bring people to explain what happened to this entire town, to start charging some money for tourism and for, the upkeep. Perhaps they could have eventually made enough money to make sure the fires are put out underground, But people, I don't know, maybe something about the logistics of it that just they couldn't do. But I've never seen so much dirt, so many piles of dirt and rock in my life.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Centralia, Pennsylvania. Quite a place to come and explore.
Yes.
Driving up these old roads covered in graffiti and just seeing the remnants of a town that once was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's funny because now there's so little that's left. I mean, the only thing that you really find is some sidewalks if you're looking real hard for them. You may find some stone steps like the ones that we did. You're going to find a lot of graffiti, that's for sure. The whole road behind us is covered with it, and the road is extending off is covered with it. And, it's a couple places where you see fence posts and pipes sticking out of the ground and things that were reminiscent of, the people that once lived here. But that's all you're going to find here anymore, and it's kind of sad. It's really a sad thing.
Absolutely. So try to look up some pictures of the town, what it looked like before, and
Yes.
kind of get an idea of where we've been today, what it once was.
I'm just an old coal miner and I labor for my bread. This story in my memory I've here told. For the sake of wife and baby, how a miner risks his life for the price of just a little lump of coal. Don't forget me, little darling, when they lay me down to rest. Tell my brothers all these loving words I say. Let the flowers be forgotten, sprinkle coal dust on my grave, in remembrance of the UMWA. Mother Jones is not forgotten by the miners of this field. She's gone to rest above, God bless her soul. Tried to lead the boys to victory, but was